Welcome to chapter 21 and Things Fall Apart. In chapter 20 we saw the white people kind of coming in and infiltrating the Igbo society and establishing their laws. So in this chapter let's see if there are any advances in that situation. There were many men and women in Umuafia who did not feel as strongly as Okonkwo about the new dispensation. The white man had indeed brought a lunatic religion, but he had also built a trading store, and for the first time palm oil and kernel became things of great price, and much money flowed into Umuafia. And even in the matter of religion there was a growing feeling that there might be something in it after all, something vaguely akin to method in the overwhelming madness. This growing feeling was due to Mr. Brown, the white missionary, who was very firm in restraining his flock from provoking the wrath of the clan. One member in particular was very difficult to restrain. His name was Enoch, and his father was the priest of the snake cult. The story went around that Enoch had killed and eaten the sacred python, and that his father had cursed him. Mr. Brown preached against such excess of zeal. Everything was possible, he told his energetic flock, but everything was not expedient. And so Mr. Brown came to be respected by the clan, because he trod softly on its faith. He made friends with some of the great men of the clan, and on one of his frequent visits to the neighboring villages, he had been presented with a carved elephant tusk, which was a sign of dignity and rank. One of the great men in that village was called Akuna, and he had given one of his sons to be taught the white man's knowledge in Mr. Brown's school. So you can see Mr. Brown is seen as kind of a good guy, a nice guy in this community. He's come in with his religion, but he doesn't like force it on anybody. And even the converts like Enoch, who would love to force this new religion on some of his old peers, he restrains this guy. And so Mr. Brown's a friend to the clan. And that's one of the reasons why Achebe has named him Mr. Brown. Okay. Whenever Mr. Brown went to that village, he spent long hours with Akuna in his obi, talking through an interpreter about religion. Neither of them succeeded in converting the other, but they learned more about their different beliefs. "You say that there is one supreme God who made heaven and earth," said Akuna on one of Mr. Brown's visits. "We also believe in him and call him Chukwu. He made all the world and the other gods." "There are no other gods," said Mr. Brown. "Chukwu is the only God, and all others are false. You carve a piece of wood like that one," he pointed at the rafters from which Akuna's carved ikenga hung, "and you call it a god, but it is still a piece of wood." "Yes," said Akuna, "it is indeed a piece of wood. The tree from which it came was made by Chukwu, as indeed all minor gods were. But he made them for his messengers, so that we could approach him through them. It is like yourself. You are the head of your church." "No," protested Mr. Brown. "The head of my church is God himself." "I know," said Akuna, "but there must be a head in this world among men. Somebody like yourself must be the head here." "The head of my church in that sense is in England." "That is exactly what I am saying. The head of your church is in your country. He has sent you here as his messenger, and you have also appointed your own messengers and servants. Or let me take another example. The district commissioner, he is sent by your king." "They have a queen," said the interpreter on his own account. "Your queen sends her messengers, the district commissioner. He finds that he cannot do the work alone, and so he appoints Kotma to help him. It is the same with God, or Chukwu. He appoints the smaller gods to help him because his work is too great for one person." "You should not think of him as a person," said Mr. Brown. "It is because you do so that you imagine he must need helpers, and the worst thing about it is that you give all the worship to the false gods you have created." "That is not so. We make sacrifices to the little gods, but when they fail and there is no one else to turn to, we go to Chukwu. It is right to do so. We approach a great man through his servants, but when his servants fail to help us, then we go to the last source of hope. We appear to pay greater attention to the little gods, but that is not so. We worry them more because we are afraid to worry their master. Our fathers knew that Chukwu was the overlord, and that is why many of them gave their children the name Chukwuka. Chukwu is supreme." "You said one interesting thing," said Mr. Brown. "You are afraid of Chukwu. In my religion, Chukwu is a loving father and need not be feared by those who do his will." So apparently Mr. Brown is talking about New Testament God, because Old Testament God, the one who sent the flood, was to be feared. So it seems like Mr. Brown is kind of working this religion that he definitely knows, but he's working it around in a way that fits his needs here. To me, it's surprising how similar the Igbo religion is to Christianity, and the way that Acuna broke it down for Mr. Brown was really good. I really enjoyed that, because you can definitely see, we have all these little gods, sure, but you kind of have the same thing in religion, where you have a priest and your people go to the priest so that the priest can kind of contact God for them. We have these other little wooden kind of idols that we talk to so that they will talk to Chukwu for us. And so it's very similar, at least in my mind. "But we must fear him when we are not doing his will," said Acuna. "And who is to tell his will? It is too great to be known." In this way, Mr. Brown learned a good deal about the religion of the clan, and he came to a conclusion that a frontal attack on it would not succeed. And so he built a school and a little hospital in Umuafia. So if you were starting to think that Mr. Brown was kind of a good guy, you are mistaken. Mr. Brown does not want to start an actual physical fight with these Igbo people. He is trying to take them over without even so much as a fight. So he's brought his religion in, which is starting to convert them, which is weakening the clan. But then he's decided that, I can't win them all over with this religion. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a school and a hospital, so that the hospital shows them, oh, we're caring, we want to take care of you, and that kind of stuff. And that starts to win part of a psychological battle. And then the school, like we mentioned previously, is there so that they can start teaching them the European ways and the things that these Europeans want the Igbo people to know. And that will distance these Igbo people from their old ways, and they'll be easier to manage and take over in this way. He went from family to family begging people to send their children to his school, but at first they only sent their slaves or sometimes their lazy children. Mr. Brown begged and argued and prophesied. He said that the leaders of the land in the future would be men and women who had learned to read and write. If Umuafia failed to send her children to the school, strangers would come from other places to rule them. Now, isn't that interesting? Mr. Brown says, if you don't send your people to my school, other people are going to come and they're going to rule over you. But he is clearly starting to rule over them. So it's very kind of ironic that he is saying this. They could already see that happening in the native court, where the district commissioner was surrounded by strangers who spoke his tongue. Most of these strangers came from the distant town of Umuru on the bank of the great river, where the white man went first. In the end, Mr. Brown's arguments began to have an effect. More people came to learn in his school, and he encouraged them with gifts of singlets and towels. They were not all young, these people who came to learn. Some of them were 30 years old or more. They worked on their farms in the morning and went to school in the afternoon. And it was not long before the people began to say that the white man's medicine was quick and working. Mr. Brown's school produced quick results. A few months in it were enough to make one a court messenger or even a court clerk. So come to my school for a little bit and then I'll set you up with a job. But it's a job in the white man's government. So he's using these people against their own people. Those who stayed longer became teachers, and from Umuafia laborers went forth into the Lord's vineyard. New churches were established in the surrounding villages, and a few schools with them. From the very beginning, religion and education went hand in hand. Mr. Brown's mission grew from strength to strength, and because of its link with the new administration, it earned a new social prestige. But Mr. Brown himself was breaking down in health. At first he ignored the warning signs, but in the end he had to leave his flock sad and broken. It was the first rainy season after Okonkwo's return to Umuafia that Mr. Brown left for home. As soon as he had learned of Okonkwo's return 5 months earlier, the missionary had immediately paid him a visit. He had just sent Okonkwo's son Nwoye, who was now called Isaac, to the new training college for teachers in Umuru. And if that doesn't show you that these people are definitely making a serious impact on their lives, then nothing will. Nwoye, who has a very Igbo name, is now called Isaac. We are changing the Igbo people. We are making them more like the Europeans. That's exactly what has happened here. And that's why he mentions that Nwoye's name is now Isaac. And he had hoped that Okonkwo would be happy to hear of it, but Okonkwo had driven him away with the threat that if he came into his compound again, he would be carried out of it. So there's Okonkwo, true to form, threatening this man with violence. Okonkwo's return to his native land was not as memorable as he had wished. It was true his two beautiful daughters aroused great interest among suitors, and marriage negotiations were soon in progress. But beyond that, Umuofia did not appear to have taken any special notice of the warrior's return. The clan had undergone such profound change during his exile that it was barely recognizable. The new religion and government and the trading stores were very much in the people's eyes and minds. There were still many who saw these new institutions as evil, but even they talked and thought about little else, and certainly not about Okonkwo's return. And it was the wrong year, too. If Okonkwo had immediately initiated his two sons in the Ozo society as he had planned, he would have caused a stir. But the initiation rite was performed once in 3 years in Umuofia, and he had to wait for nearly 2 years for the next round of ceremonies. Okonkwo was deeply grieved, and it was not just a personal grief. He mourned for the clan which he saw breaking up and falling apart, and he mourned for the warlike men of Umuofia, who had so unaccountably become soft like women. So there's Okonkwo's view on masculinity rearing its ugly head again, and he thinks that, oh, woe is me, I'm feeling sorry for myself again because things didn't go my way. And meanwhile, he's right to feel sad for his clan because things are definitely falling apart for them. The European colonialists have come in and they've completely infiltrated this Igbo society. So that's it for chapter 21. Next time we're going to get into chapter 22. And we're almost finished with the book, so hang in there.